Good evening, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes. Good evening.
Excellent. All right, we are going to get started. All right, we are calling this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, February 10th, 2022. This is the meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission for the City of West Hollywood. Who would like to lead us in the pledge? Commissioner Kirpies?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirpies. Mr. Secretary, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harris?
Here.
Commissioner Kirpies?
Commissioner Kirpies, we need volume.
Yes, I'm here. I didn't hear that.
Commissioner Maggio?
Here.
Commissioner Montemayor has not joined us. Commissioner Topshin?
Here.
Vice Chair Copeland?
Here.
Chair Marks?
I am present. We have a quorum. Thank you very much. Has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda for tonight? I see heads nodding yes. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Maggio?
Second that.
Commissioner Ayers? Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harris?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirpies?
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Copeland?
Aye.
Chair Marks?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And now we are on to the minutes from last meeting, which was January 27th, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to look over those? I see heads nodding. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
All right. Commissioner Harris?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirpies?
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Copeland?
Aye.
Chair Marks?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Do we have any speakers from the public tonight? We're on mute, Mr. Secretary.
All right. We have two speakers, but they're here to speak on the appeal of case D4617.
Okay, great. We will take those in turn. Moving on to the manager's report. Mr. Holland, good to see you.
Good evening, Chair. Good to see you too. Good evening, and good evening, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Jonathan Holla, Rent Stabilization Manager. On the look ahead, we have two appeals this evening. We're going to be shuffling things around a little bit. There are some changes from the time this was published. The increase case you've been eagerly awaiting is going to actually be March 10th. And the case D4627 will be heard at the next meeting. I anticipate 4620 and 4626 to be heard together at the March 24th meeting, and no further appeals at this time. Also at the next meeting, we'll still be hearing from David Juni regarding getting your input on social services priorities. Mr. Juni is the social services division manager. Regarding eviction numbers, they're still quite low. But as we discussed the last time, the county extended the eviction moratorium, which also applies to West Hollywood residents. For the commission's information, the city council approved the commission's recommended regulation amendments and passed the rent stabilization ordinance amendments on first reading at the council meeting on Monday. Thank you, Commissioner Ayers, for bringing to my attention that the Senior Advisory Board wanted to hear from RSD staff. So I'll be there on the 23rd, which is next 2 weeks. Wednesday, 2 weeks from now. And also just a reminder, as always, that if you are a tenant who is struggling to pay your rent, the Housing is Key program is still in effect and distributing funds. So housingiskey.com is the place to go. That's all I have. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take those at this time.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Topshin.
Thank you, Chair. Just an idea. I don't remember if we ever heard from the Code Enforcement Unit on presentation on their work that they do. Mr. Manager, do you recall if we have any report or presentation from our code enforcement to the commission at the time?
There's nothing currently on the agenda. I'd be happy to talk to Danny Rivas, the Code Enforcement Division Manager, and see they can come and visit.
Yeah, if the chair and vice chair would agree, I would really request that something to be scheduled. I'd like to know what the code enforcement is doing now, and if there are any changes or what's going on there. Sort of to keep us in the in the loop of things recently happened.
I know they're quite busy, but I will talk to Danny and see if and when they can swing by.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Sure.
Any other questions? I see none. All right. Thank you, Mr. Holub. All right. Moving on to commissioner comments. Anyone have any comments for us this evening and for the public? I see a lot of long stares, so I'll take that as a no for now, but we do have opportunities after. So we will move on to our appeals. All right. Commissioner Montemayor, welcome. All right, tonight we do have two appeals. We'll be starting with D-4615, that's 1021 North Doheny Drive, number 3. The second appeal will be D-4617, and that is 1114 North Flores Street, number 5. So we will start again with D-4615. Do we have a representative from the tenant side, Mr. Viceroy, I believe?
Tenant notified us that he will not be attending tonight.
Okay. And then do we have a representative for the landlord, Wallingford Ventures LTD?
We do. We have Tracy Clark with us.
Okay, great. Ms. Clark, hang tight. We are going to get a staff report from our legal counsel, and then I will go through the rules and processes for tonight. Mr. Natalizio, welcome. We are ready for your report.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Natalizio, and I'm the legal counsel to the Rent Stabilization Commission for the city. This appeal was filed by tenant Jim Viceroy in response to the hearing examiner's decision denying in part and granting in part his rent reduction application regarding 12 unit-specific issues. The hearing examiner categorized these issues as follows. The first was issues relating to an air conditioner. The second was issues relating to a kitchen light fixture. The third were issues related to a bathroom vanity. The fourth were issues relating to smoking on the property. The fifth were issues relating to alleged sexual harassment and noise disturbances from another unit. The sixth were issues relating to landlord's failure to offer a pre-inspection of the unit. 7, issues relating to landlord's failure to communicate, and 8, issues relating to landlord's failure to uphold various provisions of the lease. The hearing examiner granted a rent reduction on the following issues: an $8 reduction for the air conditioner's lack of a remote control unit, and $32.50 for the absence of a smoke-free premises. Therefore, the hearing examiner granted a total rent reduction to tenant in the amount of $40.50. All other issues were denied. Tenant filed his appeal of the decision. Tenant's appeal appears to appeal the decision as it relates to all items, including those in which his application was meritorious. The appeal claims that the decision is clearly an error, is not reasonably supported by the findings made or the evidence in the record, constitutes an abuse of discretion, and is contrary to the law. The appeal is lengthy, and staff will defer to its summarization in the staff report just for purposes of brevity regarding the contents of the appeal. However, staff has reviewed the appeal record and recommends affirming the hearing examiner's decision. So regarding the air conditioning remote control unit, the evidence shows that the air conditioner works and provides adequate cooling to the unit. To the extent that the remote control does not work, or give remote access for controlling the temperature that's not in dispute. As it relates to the valuation amount, staff believes that the $8 is reasonable, and the hearing examiner's methodology is supported by substantial evidence. Regarding the light fixture, the hearing examiner determined that the light fixture is fully operational, and therefore the defect was cured before the time of the hearing. There was no evidence of any ongoing issues with the light fixture in the unit. Therefore, the evidence showed that the light fixture is fully operational, and staff believes that there's substantial evidence in the record to support the decision. Regarding the bathroom vanity, the hearing examiner noted that the bathroom vanity is not included in the maintenance standards set forth in the RSO. Additionally, the hearing examiner noted that because tenant testified the condition of the bathroom is nearly the same as when you moved in, there's not been a substantial reduction in the housing service. Further, the hearing examiner noted that tenant failed to submit photos to demonstrate any degree of inadequacy in the bathroom. Therefore, staff believes that there's substantial evidence in the record to support the decision. Regarding smoking, tenant's appeal challenges the order in the hearing examiner's decision regarding how the landlord may restore rent. The order provides that in order to have the $32.50 of the rent reversed, the landlord will be required to take all steps necessary to ensure that the lease prohibitions against smoking on the premises are enforced. The order set forth by the hearing examiner is reasonable and clearly establishes what must be done in order for the landlord to establish compliance with the decision to restore rent. Therefore, staff believe that there's substantial evidence in the record to support the decision. Regarding the sexual harassment and noise disturbances, the hearing examiner determined that the issues between tenant and the other unit are private matters and must be resolved outside the procedures of the RSO. There was no elimination or substantial reduction of a housing service, and therefore no corresponding rent adjustment was warranted. Staff believes that there's substantial evidence in the record to support the decision on this. Regarding the pre-inspection of the unit, as the hearing examiner notes, the matter is moot as tenant did not move out of the unit. Additionally, the alleged issue resolved before the application was even filed. Therefore, staff believes that there's substantial evidence in the record to support the decision on this. Regarding landlord's communication, the hearing examiner determined that the evidence supported the landlord's position that it was reasonably responsive and attentive to tenant. Regulations afford the hearing examiner great latitude to consider and evaluate evidence. The hearing examiner pointed out that the quality of management services in general does not result in a substantial reduction of housing services. Therefore, staff believes that there is substantial evidence in the record to support the decision. Regarding the lease and allegations of loss of quiet enjoyment, the hearing examiner determined that no specific lease provisions or acts were identified by tenant during the hearing. The hearing examiner noted that quiet enjoyment as it relates to the RSO is not applicable to the situation. Therefore, if tenant's claim is a violation of the implied covenant of quiet enjoyment, that is a matter for civil litigation. The hearing examiner determined that the RSO does not provide any sort of direct remedy for lease violations or loss of quiet enjoyment. Therefore, staff believes that there's substantial evidence in the record supporting the decision. Therefore, based upon the above, staff recommends adopting resolution RSC 22-607. The commission have the power to affirm, reverse, modify, or remand the appeal decision of the hearing examiner. The commission reviews the hearing examiner's decision on the substantial evidence standard, which requires the commission to make sure there's substantial evidence that reasonably supports a hearing examiner's decision, is credible and of solid value. If that evidence is found, then the decision must be upheld, even if there's also evidence that could support a different outcome. The commission does not substitute its judgment for that of the hearing examiner or reweigh the evidence. As it relates to questions of law, the commission applies an independent or de novo standard of review to the hearing examiner's conclusions of law. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions? Yes, Commissioner Topshin.
No questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Natalizio, just for clarification purposes, the in the report, the 30-day notice dated April 12, 2021. That's asking the landlord for pre-inspection. Was this the actual notice of that the tenant intended to terminate tenancy, or it was a request for repairs?
No,
I couldn't find the actual notice.
It was a notice to terminate the tenancy. I believe it was in an email.
Okay, and because I found the notice to rescind that was dated May 18th. Or over 30 days after that. All right, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Commissioners, other questions? I do not see any. Okay, thank you, Mr. Natalizio. All right, Ms. Clark, you are up. You can unmute yourself now. I'll explain how I'll explain how this is going to go. Please, when we start, you'll state your name and your city of residence for the record. And then you will have 5 minutes straight to talk. And then at the end of that time, if any of the commissioners have questions for you, we will have those questions asked and answered. And a few rules, please keep on topic. Only information you share tonight should be about the appeal topic, nothing outside of the appeal matter. And we cannot consider or hear new evidence. So you may only discuss issues that were raised at the hearing with the hearing officer or evidence submitted to the hearing officer. Any questions?
No, I understand.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, you have 5 minutes. You may go ahead and explain your case.
We came before the Rent Stabilization Commission. You guys made a decision. We actually agree with the. With your findings. We're acceptable of it. We actually reduced his rent, even though he's continued to pay the regular rent. We've on our records, we've reduced it, and it's an easy way to try to satisfy the things that he was requesting. He's a difficult tenant, and trying to please him will be an ongoing thing. So we're happy with the decision. We're going to, follow all of the recommendations that you guys make, and we're probably going to have the tenant, because he's such a difficult tenant, have him make his requests to the city of West Hollywood before coming to us, because it's just very difficult.
All right, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Clark, representative of the landlord? I do not see, yes, Vice Chair Copeland.
Hi, yes, Ms. Clark. I just wanted to clarify something. I believe you testified at the hearing that the tenant's thermostat was replaced in July. Was that for a refrigerator or for an air conditioner?
That was for the refrigerator.
Okay.
That was for there was never anything wrong with the thermostat on the air conditioner. It was for the refrigerator. He had turned the repair people away twice before without,
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
but it was for a refrigerator, not an air conditioner. That's where I had some confusion. Okay, thank you.
For the
very much.
refrigerator.
Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, other questions? I do not see any. Ms. Clark, thank you very much. You can go on mute. We're going to enter deliberations now.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, commissioner comments on this matter. Who would like to start? Yes, Commissioner Maggio.
We're ready for deliberation, is that correct?
Yes, you're right.
Well, the hearing examiner did deny a rent reduction related to the following issues for sure: the kitchen light bulbs, bathroom vanity, sexual harassment and noise disturbances, pre-inspection of unit, communication and lease agreement, and quiet of enjoyment. However, the hearing examiner granted a rent reduction for the following issues where there was definite evidence: an $8 reduction for an air conditioner because of a lack of remote control, and a $32.50 for the absence of a smoke-free premise. So therefore, the hearing examiner granted a total rent reduction to the tenant of the amount of $40.50. I would say that I am in agreement with the hearing examiner's decision, and I certainly will support the decision of the hearing examiner. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Maggio. Further deliberations? Yes, Vice Chair Copeland, I see you
No, I was
anxiously waiting.
No, I was waiting to see, hopefully someone else would. I agree with the hearing examiner's determination. The question that I had some confusion about in the record was, it was stated in the examiner's decision report that the thermostat was replaced on the air conditioner. And evidently was the thermostat that was replaced on the refrigerator. So there was a determination for an $8 reduction. To me, it seems a bit low, but I will defer to, and also in the hearing examiner's direction for reinstatement, he did say that they needed to make sure the thermostat was working correctly. So there was just a little bit of confusion what thermostat was replaced and whether or not it is working or it runs all the time. So that's why I had asked for that clarification, and it turns out it was actually the refrigerator thermostat, not the air conditioner, that was replaced. So because of that, I just thought it was a little bit low. I know it's a studio, but $8 I thought was on the low end to me. But that's the only question that I had. I think I agree with staff's evaluation and the hearing examiner's decision otherwise, and I would support that and whatever my fellow commissioners think. But that's the only thing that stuck in my mind, was that it seemed a bit low. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Copeland. Additional comments, if people don't have comments on the broader topic, I'd love to hear on Vice Chair Copeland's comment specifically. Commissioner Maggio?
Well, the report specifically also says that the reason why $8 was determined because it was really based on the remote control.
Right. I think Vice Chair Copeland is saying that there was some confusion in the record that the thermostat was fixed, showing maintenance had been done on the air conditioner, when in fact the maintenance was on the refrigerator alone, and not. So maybe there wasn't maintenance done, I think, is the question here. Ms. Clark, do you mind answering that question for us? Will you confirm, just for a clear record, that
Yes,
the
of course.
only repair was done on the fridge with the thermostat and not on the AC unit?
Yes, of course. The refrigerator had an issue with the thermostat. Parts were ordered. They came out to repair it. He refused the entry. The company returned the parts. And then maybe a month later, he determined that he did want to have it fixed. So we had them come back out after they reordered the parts, and he then allowed them to make the repair to the thermostat inside the refrigerator. The air conditioning unit has always worked. It just that the remote control didn't work, but the unit itself worked. And it is a small space. You can very easily walk to it and turn it on and off. It's always worked.
Understood. Thank you for answering other questions. Commissioners, other comments? Yes, Commissioner Topshian and then Commissioner Kerpies.
Yeah, Chair, I'm sorry. We're deliberating, right? And we just, I think, would be if I may suggest that each commissioner probably should go on the record and whether support or don't support, or doesn't support the findings versus the volunteering to speak, if I may suggest that. So I'm in support of the staff's recommendation. I believe the findings of the examiner are correct, and I concur with the examiner's determination. In this case, I would kind of agree with the with Vice Chair's comment on the lower end reduction for the remote control, but I see that staff provides the justification for the lower amount of the rent decrease for the remote control, that the space is small, correct? Although having a remote control operating properly, I think it's a convenience issue. I think it's also should have been factored in for the rent reduction amount, because we have that in the regulations, the comfort and convenience when the service is removed. again, I'm prepared to support the staff recommendation and as is, but if other commissioners would agree that we could revise the $8 amount, I would be happy to support that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kirby?
Yes, thank you. I am a little bit concerned that the information is not correct in terms of the actual air conditioner. I don't mind the $8 for the remote, and I support the rest of the hearing examiner's determination. But I think that there's some confusion in the record, both in the hearing examiner's decision and in the staff report about what the thermostat is referring to. In my opinion, it sounds like there was no evidence to show that the air conditioner was not operating. There was no complaints about it reaching the temperature that he set it at. It seemed to be that the tenant didn't like the fact that it didn't turn off automatically. And so I don't know if we want to remand that portion just with the air conditioner, but I do support keeping the $8 for the remote and the rest of the hearing examiner's decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Ayers and then Commissioner Montemayor.
Yeah, I just want to say that I do support the findings of the hearing examiner, and I believe the hearing examiner's decision should be upheld.
Thank you. Commissioner Montemayor.
I support the hearing examiner's decision. I agree with the staff report. I think the $8 for the remote is adequate.
Thank you. I would also support the hearing examiner's decision. I do understand the somewhat lack of clarity in the record. I think even if we remove and don't consider whether or not there was maintenance on this regarding the thermostat, I think there's ample evidence in the record that the cooling unit works beyond the fact that there is not a remote control for this unit. So I'd be happy to support the hearing examiner's decision and go with the staff recommendation. So I take everyone's comments as well. So any further comments or a motion? Commissioner Maggio, yep, I see your hand.
I'm ready to make a motion if it's appropriate.
The floor is yours.
I make a motion to adopt resolution RSC 22-607, a resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood, affirming the hearing examiner's decision as to application number D-4615.
Do we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Ayers?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you get a second?
That was Commissioner Montemayor.
Oh, good. Okay, aye.
Commissioner Kirby?
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio?
Aye.
Commissioner Montemayor?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Copeland?
Aye.
Chair Marks?
The motion passes. Thank you very much. The parties, Ms. Clark, will be placed back in the waiting room. You're welcome to listen to the rest of the meeting if you'd like. If you do have questions, I believe you do have this information already, but the Rent Stabilization Division can be reached at 323-848-6450 or by email at the new address, I believe I have right, rsd as in dog at weho.org. And I want to just make a quick comment. If the tenant's watching or watches this later, there were a lot of requests in the documentation tonight that are outside of the scope of what the Rent Stabilization Commission has the power to do. I understand if we had a magic wand, there's a lot of powers and decisions we would make beyond what we do in our daily lives here, but we're limited by the municipal code and the rent stabilization ordinance, and it's very strict. So a lot of the things requested of us were far beyond what we have the power to give. So we will now move on. I see our mascot has joined, Ms. Ayers. We will move on to the next appeal, D-4617, tenant is Ed Holman. The landlord representative party is Class Enterprises. Are both parties, looks like they're joining now. I see Mr. Holman has joined. 1 second to give. Hello, Mr. Holman. If you have this on in the background for echo.
I just turned it off.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And do we have a representative from the landlord side here? If you can unmute yourself, I see Mr. Birnbaum, are you the representative for the landlord? If you give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, that will suffice for the moment. There you go, you have unmuted yourself. Are you the landlord's representative?
I am the landlord, yes.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, Mr. Holman and Mr. Birnbaum, if you can either be on mute or just remain silent while I explain how this works, that would be wonderful. First, we're going to hear a staff report from our legal counsel, and then the appellant, the person who filed this appeal, I believe is the landlord this evening, will have a total of 5 minutes to speak and discuss your appeal. You will have the option to divide that 5 minutes into 2 parts, the opening and then the rebuttal. The respondent, who is Mr. Holman, will speak in the middle of that, and you, Mr. Holman, will have 5 uninterrupted minutes to state your case. When it is your time to speak, you will unmute yourself, you will state your name, city of residence, and then the appellant will state how you want to split your time, and you'll proceed with your comments. As you may have heard on the previous case, your speaking time is limited, so please keep on topic. Only information that is part of this appeal should be discussed tonight. New evidence cannot be considered by the commission. You may only discuss issues that were raised at the hearing examiner at the hearing with the hearing examiner, or evidence submitted to the hearing examiner. So we are now going to turn to our legal counsel to hear the staff report, and we'll be back with the both of you. Thank you. Mr. Natalizio, you are up.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair Martz. We also have 2 public speakers who intend to speak on this appeal, and we also have a unidentified caller who entered the waiting room during the first appeal. So I'm not sure if they're here to speak on this appeal as well.
All right, Mr. Natalizio, do we typically take the public comment after your staff report and before we go into the actual case?
As long as the public comment is heard before the commission deliberates, it's up to you, Chair, if you want to hear it before the party's arguments or after, as long as it's before deliberation.
Perfect, thank you. And we will hear your staff report, and then we will go to public comment, and then we will go to the parties of the case.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to the commission to have to hear me drone on 2 times tonight, and my monotone voice can soothe you. So I'm John Natalizio. I'm the legal counsel to the Rent Stabilization Commission for the city. This appeal was filed by the landlord, Class Enterprises, in response to the hearing examiner's decision in a relevant part granting a rent reduction application submitted by tenant Ed Holman. Tenant's application alleged 38 issues concerning the unit and common area. However, relevant to this appeal, tenant claimed issues relating to 1, a heating and cooling unit in his unit's 2nd bedroom, 2, the condition of the exterior paint of the building, and 3, cracks in the exterior of the building. Regarding the heating and cooling unit, the unit contains 2 bedrooms. Tenant alleged that the heating and cooling unit in that 2nd bedroom is inoperable. Regarding the exterior paint, the tenant alleges that while common area hallways and stairwells have been touched up with paint, the exterior of the building was last painted over 10 years ago. Regarding exterior cracks, tenant alleges that the cracks and vertical fissures exist throughout the exterior of the building. A decision was issued, which in relevant part granted tenant's application as follows: $30 for the heating and cooling unit, $30 for the exterior paint condition, and $14 for the cracks in the exterior of the building. Therefore, relevant to this appeal, the hearing examiner granted a $30 rent decrease to tenant's unit specific issue for the heating and cooling unit, and $44 for the common area issues relating to the paint and cracks on the exterior of the building. Therefore, the hearing examiner awarded a total rent reduction to tenant in the amount of $74 relevant to this appeal. Landlord filed its appeal of the decision. The appeal claims that the decision is not reasonably supported by the findings made or the evidence in the record. The appeal challenges three primary things. First, that the landlord claims that the hearing examiner erred in requiring the landlord to repair or replace the cooling and heating unit. Second, the landlord claims that it should not have to repaint the exterior of the building. Landlord argues that the building is undergoing retrofitting and thus it will be repainted at a later date. And third, the landlord argues that the repairing of the cracks is part of the retrofit work as well, and therefore it is unreasonable to require repair work to be performed before and after the retrofit work. Staff has reviewed the appeal record and recommends affirming the hearing examiner's decision. Regarding the heating and cooling unit, landlord has stated that it replaced the heating and cooling unit as a show of goodwill. There is no effective relief that the commission could grant since landlord has acquiesced to the order in the decision. Therefore, staff believes that this part of the appeal is moot and a compliance determination is ultimately the proper channel for seeking relief for the rent reduction. Regarding the exterior paint, the RSO requires that all building exteriors be painted no less than once every 7 years. The hearing examiner considered the evidence and testimony, including landlord's arguments regarding the as-needed painting and retrofitting, and determined that landlord had not complied with its obligations under the RSO, nor was its obligations excused due to retrofitting. And staff believes that there is substantial evidence to support the hearing's decision to that. And the hearing examiner awarded a rent reduction of $30, and staff believes that that is a reasonable amount and supported by substantial evidence as well. Regarding the exterior cracks, the RSO requires that all rental units be maintained in accordance with all applicable building, housing, and health codes. The hearing examiner identified that the city's municipal code prohibits structure, exteriors, or interiors that are improperly maintained, neglected, or damaged, or in need of repairs. Based upon the evidence, particularly the photographs and testimony submitted, the building exterior does not appear properly maintained, appears neglected, and is damaged within the meaning of the municipal code. Again, as with painting, future retrofitting does not excuse landlord from complying with his obligations under the RSO, particularly for matters that are unrelated to structural issues. Therefore, staff believes there's substantial evidence in the record supporting the decision. Therefore, based upon the above, staff recommends adopting resolution RSC 22-608. You, as the commission, have the power to affirm, reverse, modify, or remand the appeal decision of the hearing examiner. The commission reviews the hearing examiner's decision under the substantial evidence standard, which requires the commission to make sure there's substantial evidence that reasonably supports the hearing examiner's decision, is credible and of solid value. If that evidence is found, then the decision must be upheld, even if there is also evidence that could support a different outcome. The commission does not substitute its judgment for that of the hearing examiner or reweigh evidence. As it relates to questions of law, the commission applies an independent or de novo standard of review to the hearing examiner's conclusions of law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions? I do not see any. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Natalizio. We are going to turn to our public comment. We have 2 or 3. The person who called in on the phone, if you can unmute yourself and let us know if you are a public comment for this appeal, D-4617. Give you a moment here. Call-in user.
No comments.
No comments. Was that Mr. Erickson?
Yes. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you. Okay. And Mr. Ziemniak, if you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment that reinforcing the previous decision of the rent commission of the building and it not having been painted. The building was actually and has actually never been fully painted since Mr. Birnbaum has owned the building. It was last fully painted in the year 1999 because I was here and had the letter from the landlord. I do also wish to point out one thing to the rental commission is that regarding a portion that was in the testimony of this regarding a decision D3068 from January 2007, that awarded a $3 rental reduction due to mine and other tenants that are still current in this building that has never been given by Mr. Birnbaum. And that is currently all the testimony I have, was just to those two issues, and those because we're generally just regarding the general issues of the common areas. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ziemniak.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Last chance for call-in user. I don't have a name here. I'm not being rude. All right, well, there is a public comment section later if you want to do general public comment. All right, we are going to turn to the appellant and the respondent. As I stated earlier, the appellant is Mr. Birnbaum. Please state your name and your city of residence and let us know how you would like to split your 5 minutes. Please keep on topic and don't bring up new evidence. And you may go ahead.
My name is George Birnbaum, and I am in 14359 Addison in Los Angeles.
All right, and how would you like to split your 5 minutes tonight?
I have about 5 minutes, and I'm going to read it as fast as I can and leave the balance of my time for a response.
All right, that will work. You may go ahead.
HVAC, the staff wrote, quote, "It is unclear why landlord is appealing this item because he admitted HVAC is not functioning and that tenant identified a previous tenant as the individual who cut the cord," unquote. Staff is wrong and completely misunderstood what Mr. Holman said. Ed never said that a previous tenant cut the cord. He claimed it was a current tenant who lived with him and recently left that destroyed unit while they were living together. Of course, had a previous tenant destroyed the unit, I would have to provide a functioning HVAC for a new tenant. Ed stated he was not a new tenant and not subject to a new rent. I have no way of knowing which tenant vandalized the HVAC. No proof was offered. But even if the hearing officer just took Mr. Holman's word for it, or even if it was the other tenant who destroyed the unit, it wouldn't matter. If one or both of two tenants living together deliberately vandalizes the HVAC, I do not have to replace it. The tenant can then destroy it every month or every week. After contentious litigation, I met with Ed in his apartment and agreed as a gesture of goodwill to replace the HVAC, and it was done some time ago. There's no need to force me to go through a complicated compliance determination. Just ask Ed if he has a new functioning HVAC, regardless of the vandalism. Paint. On page 2, staff wrote, quote, "Tenant alleges that common area hallways and stairways had been touched up with paint, but the exterior of the building was not painted for over 10 years, unquote. There's a difference if 10% or 90% of the building was painted. Is touch-up paint referring to dabbing paint here or there, or is it painting sections of the building? Ed noted we painted the stairways and hallways. In fact, before a new tenant moved in, we also painted the surrounding exterior of the unit. As a result, the entire upstairs of the building was painted as all new tenants moved in within the past 2 years. It also includes the downstairs, with the exception of the very bottom 2 feet holding the planters. It includes both hallways and sets of stairs that we paint around every 3 years because it gets more wear than other areas. It also includes the entire upper half of the front of the building, where we also had a new tenant who moved in within the past 2 years. It also includes the ceiling stucco on the front garage, as well as the rails throughout the building. These are all very noticeable and covers the bulk of the building. The areas that were not painted at the time of hearing were the back wall and bottom part of the front wall, where retrofit is scheduled to begin April 26th. Also the south wall, the bottom 2 feet of the first floor, which contains the planters, and the back garage ceiling. These areas were all recently painted, as I'm sure Mr. Holman will acknowledge. It could be argued that I should have brought proofs of these at the time of hearing by way of invoices or photographs. I tried to submit photos to Mr. Vinalon of West Hollywood for this hearing, but he informed me correctly that new evidence may not be presented and this hearing is based on evidence already submitted. I accept that, but I have 2 comments on that regard. First, it was stated in Mr. Vinalon's letter prior to the original hearing that all evidence had to be submitted to the other party prior to the hearing date. I never received such documentation from Mr. Holman, certainly not the photographs that he submitted. Had I known he was going to submit photographic evidence to show the building exterior was not painted, I would have countered by submitting my photographs. I did not become aware of the photographs he submitted until after the hearing. Second, I was informed recently by a witness that an employee from the city of West Hollywood met recently with the tenant and reviewed the condition of the building with him. If this is true, it undermines the objectivity of this hearing, and I would like to know the name of that employee. If he met with Mr. Holman after the original hearing to review anything pertaining to this hearing, then he should also have met with me. I tried calling Ed to find out about the alleged meeting, but he did not answer and his phone did not accept messages. I emailed him to call me, but received no response. Cracks. There were no cracks throughout the building. Here again, had I been served with photographs from the tenant, I would have countered with photographs of my own. Ed was correct that there were cracks that needed attention, but it was far from throughout the building. All the cracks were recently taken care of. There is no need for formal compliance, as I'm sure Mr. Holman will acknowledge it as he witnessed the work as it was being done. I'm finished.
Thank you. Time there. All right. We're going to go to Mr. Holman, and then I think you have just a little bit left for your rebuttal. Mr. Secretary, how much time for rebuttal?
31 seconds.
31 seconds. All right, wonderful. And then we will go into questions and deliberations from the commission. Mr. Birnbaum, you can go on mute. We're going to go to Mr. Holman. Mr. Holman, you've been here before and you've heard this, but I'm going to repeat it for the record. State your name, your city of residence, and then you are going to have 5 uninterrupted minutes to speak. Please keep on topic and please do not bring up new evidence. All right. All right. Please state your name, city of record, and then your 5 minutes will start.
My name is Ed Holman, and I'm a 25-year resident of West Hollywood.
All right. You may go ahead.
No one from the city has ever come to speak to me about the condition of the building, so I don't know where that's coming from. And it's not my job to report to the commission what the landlord has done. That's what the compliance is for. Enforcement. In November 2021, the hearing examiner determined that there was to be a rent reduction for the tenants residing at 1114 North Flores Street. After today's appeal hearing, the commission will either confirm or amend the decision. If confirmed, what are the mechanisms available to guarantee that decision will be enforced? In January 2007, the hearing examiner then decided that the tenants at 1114 North Flores were to receive a rent reduction beginning in March 2007, and for nearly 15 years it has never been enforced. Meanwhile, the landlord has collected money he was not permitted to. The landlord has ignored the order to paint, he has ignored the order to fix the light fixture and to maintain the timer. All the while, he has ignored the order to pass through the rent reduction that was ordered by decision Delta 3068. In turn, while the rent reduction was not passed through, the yearly rental increase has been based off incorrect amounts starting in September of 2007. I've submitted statements from 2 of the 5 remaining tenants that fall under that decision, confirming that they have not received the rent reduction pass through. And I believe a 3rd statement was sent in directly from the 3rd tenant, while myself being the 4th, the 5th tenant has not responded. 175 months have passed between March 2007 and November 2021. Today is February 10th, 2021, and items L and M from Delta 3068 remain. Staff mentioned item L in the staff report. That's why I'm bringing this up here, but they did not mention item M. And that's all I've got, I believe. Oh, this isn't new evidence per se, but this is just the current state of the building as of today. So it's not completely painted. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. All right, we are going to do Mr. Birnbaum's rebuttal. You have 31 seconds and you may unmute yourself. Mr. Holman, if you can go on mute, that'd be great. Thank you. All right, you are, yes, we can. All right, you have 31 seconds for rebuttal. You may go ahead.
I believe the $3 reduction was implemented, and if it wasn't, then we can calculate the amount that is due. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Birnbaum. Commissioners, do you have questions for either Mr. Birnbaum or Mr. Holman this evening? Commissioner Ayers, I see a hand.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Birnbaum. You submitted in your appeal that retrofitting work was scheduled to commence on December 14th. Did it commence in December, and has it been completed?
It has not commenced. It is now, there have been delays, and currently it is scheduled to commence April 26th.
And how long is that that process supposed to take?
I expect it to take about 6 weeks.
Okay, and does that 6 weeks include the painting and repairing of cracks in the building?
Yes, it
part of
does,
the
but
retrofit contract?
yes, it does, but the painting has already been done in those areas.
I see. Okay, thank you.
All right, commissioners, other questions? I do not. No. Okay, wonderful. Mr. Birnbaum, Mr. Holman, thank you. If you're both on mute, that would be great. We are going to enter deliberations now. All right, commissioners, who would like to begin? Commissioner Topshian, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the generally, I mean, speaking in regards to the whole case, the whole appeal, and for all items at once, I agree with the examiner's findings. I think the determination is supported by the record evidence on all these three items of the appeal before us. I just wanted to make a quick comment regarding the landlord's argument concerning the heating, the cooling system, and who cut the wire, and who's responsible to fix it, or etc. It is always the landlord's ultimate responsibility to ensure that the services are fully functioning in the unit. And the argument that the tenant himself or herself constantly damages, that could be a different avenue to address that claim, that allegation. But the landlord's ultimate responsibility is to maintain the habitability of the unit, ensure that all services are properly and fully functioning. If not, then it will be a rent reduction, and that's what happened in this case. However, since the issue has been resolved, so then as staff recommends and staff suggests, that the only issue here is the compliance determination. So it has to be addressed through that process. And then if this service was restored, then the rent reduction will be restored for that particular item. Concerning the exterior painting and the exterior cracks, I agree with the findings. So the record evidence provided in this case supports the findings of the examiner. And what the bottom line is, the building exterior has not been painted in its entirety for approximately 20 years. That was established here. So painting here and there, that doesn't constitute the entire building was painted as required under the West-Hollywood Munich Code. So therefore, I think the findings of the examiner are correct, and the examiner didn't err here. And that the same thing goes for the exterior cracks, because there is evidence for it. Concerning the examiner's decision in the prior case regarding the $3 rent decrease that applied to a number of units, so it is clearly explained in the staff report that nobody's getting $33 rent reduction. So everybody's going to get $30 rent reduction. So there wouldn't be any additional $3 for some units. So this is, I think that's also clear. So in other words, I would agree with each and every item that is before us, and record evidence, as I said, supports the findings of the examiner, and I'm going to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Topshian. Further comments, deliberations? Commissioner Kerpes.
Thank you, Chair. So I won't repeat what my colleague just mentioned, but yes, I agree with the hearing examiner on all three of the issues. I think the $3 is related to a different case, not related to the case in front of us. And maybe staff can answer that question for the parties at the end, how they correct that. But that's not part of this case. So I would move to, or I won't move yet, but I will be supporting the hearing examiner's decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Kerpes. Commissioner Ayers, and then Commissioner Montemayor. And then I think Commissioner Maggio, you will be third.
I largely support the findings of the hearing examiner. I do believe that Mr. Birnbaum raises a good point in why he would need to paint and repair the exterior of the building right before a retrofitting project, where it's already included as part of that contract. And the reason why I guess I'm a bit sympathetic to the landlord on this is because I understand that the retrofitting process is a huge undertaking and an expense. However, Mr. Birnbaum has testified here today that the painting has already been done. Unfortunately, this commission cannot waive the compliance process. You know, the landlord will have to go through the compliance process to have those, you know, that rent restored. But I did want to mention that, you know, I am sympathetic toward that. But I was glad to see that it has already been rectified. So I would be in agreement with the hearing examiner's decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Ayers, Commissioner Montemayor, and then Commissioner Maggio.
I agree with the hearing examiner's decision. I think the staff's report is pretty thorough. I too agree with Commissioner Ayers' comments. I have some empathy, but the process is the process. So I agree with the recommendation, and I'm ready to affirm the hearing examiner's decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Maggio.
Number one, there is substantial evidence supporting the hearing examiner's decision related to the heating and cooling unit. The hearing examiner correctly notes that the rent stabilization ordinance maintains that all appliances provided by the landlord, included heating devices, air conditioning, they all must be maintained in good working order. That's supported by the West Hollywood Municipal Code, section 17.56.01B. Number two, there is also substantial evidence supporting the hearing examiner's decision related to repairing the building exterior, and that the hearing examiner considered evidence and testimony, including the argument regarding as needed painting and retrofitting. This, of course, is supported by the West Hollywood Municipal Code, section 17.56.010C. Number three, there is substantial evidence supporting the hearing examiner's decision relating to repairing cracks in the building exterior. And it requires that all rental units maintain in accordance with all applicable building, housing, and health codes, which is supported by the West Hollywood Municipal Code, section 17.56.010, number 3. So therefore, it is clear that the building exterior is not properly maintained, is neglected, and is damaged within the meaning of the municipal code. So I believe at this point, I will suggest or support the staff's recommendation to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Maggio. Vice Chair Copeland, you're up.
Okay, I agree with Commissioner Maggio's comments as well. As far as the paint, the exception to the maintenance standard is that it has to be like new condition. And even if you paint a section here 1 year and a few years later you paint another section, it's not going to match exactly. It's still going to be some patchwork, and that doesn't meet the standard of like new condition to meet a painting exception. So I would also be in favor of affirming the hearing examiner's decision and staff's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Copeland. I will not take too much time. I agree with the comments here. I think we're all on the same page. I have empathy for the difficult process that West Hollywood is. However, that the laws have been pretty clear for a number of years that we have strict maintenance standards, strict upkeep standards, and those, in my opinion, have not been met here. And there is substantial evidence in the record to support the hearing examiner's decision. So I would uphold his decision, agree with the staff report, and unless we have further comments from commissioners, I would entertain a motion at this point.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if I may.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission 22-608, a resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood, affirming the hearing examiner's decision as to application number D-4617.
I'll second that motion.
Great. We have a motion. We have a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Ayers,
Aye.
Commissioner Kirkes,
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio,
Aye.
Commissioner Montemayor,
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Copeland,
Aye.
Chair Marks.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. The parties will be placed back in the waiting room. If you have questions, 323-848-6450 or email to the Rent Stabilization Division, rsd@weho.org. Mr. Birnbaum, you should get your compliance determination requests in quickly because, like Commissioner Ayers said, that's not our place. We don't control that and we can't waive those. So that is the best process. Mr. Holman, we cannot take any more comments.
Can you repeat that number, please? That's all I want.
Absolutely. It is 323-848-6450. Got that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you both for your time this evening. All right, we are moving on to new and unfinished business. Mr. Holla.
No new business, Chair.
No new business. All righty. Items from staff?
No further items from staff.
Well, then we are cooking with gas. Public comments.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have no public comments.
Okay. Items from commissioners. Commissioner Ayers, and then Commissioner Topshin, and then whoever else next.
I just wanted to mention that I attended the Human Services Commission the other night, and housing, of course, is a hot topic there. And also, let's see, Vice Chair Copeland and I attended the Coalition for Economic Survival's public virtual meeting, and it was quite enlightening to see the kinds of wonderful information that they make available to the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment, Commissioner Topshin.
Thank you, Chair. Very quick, I'd like to mention that in the first appeal, we had a really good justification provided for the $8 rent decrease, and I want to comment on that. The legal counsel, Mr. Natalizio, that I really like the idea to justifying the rent decrease. Whether I agree or whether we agree or disagree, it's irrelevant at this point. It's just the idea that there is a justification. We didn't have that before, and I appreciate that you provided that. Also, if the amendments to the regulations will be passed by the City Council, I don't know if there was any development on that. I know that we are including the rent paid as a factor for the consideration of the rent decrease by the examiner in the cases. So I would request, if it's possible, to include for rent decrease applications, include the amount of rent paid as part of the justification for the rent decrease. So it's always good to see what is the current rent, and since that's going to be a part of the factors to consider, and then also for those cases would be great to see the ranges for the rent decrease. Just like in this case, it says between a rent decrease between $8 and $91, and the examiner determined $8 because of this. I think this is great to see the ranges. And obviously, I'd like to see that in the future cases, and also they mentioning the rent paid. Thank you so much for that. And the other comment regarding 8B 854, I don't know if whether staff or Commissioner Kerpis, maybe if there is any new development or any update on that, please bring it up because we really want to know what's happening there. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my comments.
Commissioner Kerpis or Mr. Hollow? I see you both here.
Yeah, I'll let Commissioner Kirby's elaborate, but I know that it didn't make it past the goal line, but I'm sure Commissioner Kirby has more to add.
Commissioner Kerpis, I saw your pained face there. You can
Yeah, you leave the bad news up to me, I guess. So yeah, 854, the author decided not to put it up for a vote on the floor. I read an article today that was due to the recent vacancies that we've had in this assembly. I think we've had 3 members vacate their seats recently. And the author's claim is that we would have had the votes to get it to the Senate had those people been there for us to count on their votes. But the good thing about it not taking a vote or not taking a vote on it before the deadline was that it is dead. It does not exist. 854 is over. But because it didn't get voted down, the author has the ability to reintroduce it in the same 2-year session. So that is an open decision that or an opportunity that the author can still take if he chooses to reintroduce the same or similar bill this year and to move it forward. But we'll see what he's going to do. I think the deadline for bill introduction is the end of February 20th, I think. But I also wanted to mention, if I may, we mentioned earlier the California Housing is Key program. You know, in addition to the $5.2 billion that was set aside for renters, there was $1 billion set aside for homeowners who have fallen behind on their mortgage payments. And if you are in that situation where you're 2 or more payments behind on your mortgage payments, and it's due to COVID-19 pandemic, you can go to California or camortgagerelief.org and see if you qualify. That's camortgagerelief.org. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Other comments? I don't see any. Okay. Yes, that bill dying was unfortunate, but knowing the author, I don't think he's going to give up. This is definitely a passion of his, and his public comments make me think that something will be presented sooner rather than later. I want to note that the City of West Hollywood has a homeless initiative community update meeting on February 16th at 6 p.m. and it's going to be on Zoom, so a virtual meeting. And for details, weho.org/news, and it's about the 5th entry there. So they'll be discussing things that have been done in the past, things that are happening now, and obviously more needs to be done, but it should be a good meeting and I will be there myself. Commissioners, any other commissioner comments? No? All right. We are at this time. It is the end of the meeting. This meeting is adjourned to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission to be held on February 24th of the year 2022 via Zoom teleconference. Thank you all for your time tonight and your hard work. Much appreciated.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Thank
once
you,
again.
staff.
Yes.
Twins. Bye.